we have a crisis in the world, tremendous crisis, and also crisis in our consciousness, in us. I see the urgency of change, radical revolution, mutation in the mind. I see it. It is necessary. There is complete quietness of the mind, and that which is silent has vast space. Only then that which is nameless comes into being.
This is Urgency of Change, the Krishnamurti podcast. There can be security for mankind only if there is global relationship, interrelationship economically and socially, a global relationship, not an isolated security. Hello and welcome to episode 249 of Urgency of Change. Each episode of the Krishnamurti podcast features carefully selected extracts from the philosopher's talks. The aim is to represent different aspects of Krishnamurti's radical approach to many of the issues and questions we all face in our lives. This week's theme is isolation. Next week's theme, in the final episode of Season 5, is liberation. This is a podcast from Krishnamurti Foundation Trust based at Brockwood Park in the UK, which is also home to the Krishnamurti Retreat Centre. Situated in the beautiful countryside of the South Downs National Park, the Krishnamurti Centre offers retreats individually and in groups. The focus is on inquiry in light of Krishnamurti's teachings. Please visit krishnamurticentre.org.uk for more information. You can also find our regular quotes and videos on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook at Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review or rating on your podcast app, which helps our visibility. This week's episode on isolation has 4 sections. This first extract is from Krishnamurti's second talk at Brockwood Park in 1982 and is titled Ideologies Isolate.
We are inquiring together why human beings, you and those people who live miles and thousands of miles away, have made society as it is, and whether it's possible to bring about a radical change in that society, which means radical change in ourselves, because we are society. The world is not different from us. We have made this world. Unless our world, which is the world which is within us, in the psychological area, if that world is not transformed, we will go on killing each other in the name of God, in the name of religions, for patriotic reasons, and all that indicates we are thinking in terms of isolation. The British, the French, the Tibetans and so on, thinking in isolation. And hoping to find security, both physically and psychologically, in this isolation, try to find security. There can be no security in isolation. So obvious. There can be no security in religious isolation. There is no security in communes because they are isolated. There is no security when we think we are separate from the rest of mankind. Isolation is a very complex problem, because we're all conditioned to live and function in isolation. That's our tradition. That's our culture. If you are an artist, you're an artist, separate from everybody else. Businessman or the priest, separate. And religions throughout the world are cultivating this separatism. This is a very serious matter. Please do pay attention to this. Because things in the world are getting worse and worse. People are preparing for war. This is not a threat by me, but it's there. And we human beings are caught up in it. The politicians will not listen to any of this because they cultivate isolation. Because the vast majority of people in the world think and believe, have faith that when there is separate nationalities, there will be peace. And history has proved there is no peace in isolation. And yet we carry on. You have had a war in this country. There's war going on in different parts of the world. Because everybody ideologically, nationally, and individually are working for themselves, thinking in terms of security in isolation. And as we said yesterday, to observe this fact, this reality, to perceive it, not emotionally, not as an intellectual concept, but as an actuality, a burning reality. That as long as we are thinking in terms of isolation, there must be conflict. Conflict in our relationship, as we pointed out yesterday. And this isolation brings about hatred, this isolation brings with it this sense of separate entity who must work for himself, cultivate his selfishness, pursue his own trade, his own capacity. That's what the scientists are doing. The scientists, they are interested in one or two things. The really great scientists are concerned with matter, what's beyond matter. But those who are employed by the government, the scientists are maintaining war, as the priests throughout the world are maintaining war. Right? These are all facts. So as we said yesterday, to perceive these facts is not to analyze the fact, that which one observes, to observe. And we went into that question briefly yesterday. What does it mean to observe? Observe what is happening out there, outside of our skin, the society, the world as it is, where technology is advancing so rapidly, which is almost destroying human brain. And East, as we pointed out yesterday, that is the Far East, is now going to be completely mechanized, technologically advancing far more than any other country. As you know, Japan's cars, radios, televisions, and all the rest of it. And the brain has been occupied mostly with that. And now, if we do not wisely, carefully, intelligently observe the deeper quality of the brain, deeper quality of human being, then the brain will naturally deteriorate as it is deteriorating now. The brain has got infinite capacity. But it is limited now as we live. It's limited by our desire to fulfill as an individual. It is limited by the travail, the agony, the despairs, the loneliness, the terrible state human beings live in. All that, by all those activities, the brain is limited. It has, when that limitation is broken down, it has got infinite capacity. Right? And we are inquiring into that, whether it's possible to break down, to be free from this conditioning of, as we said, from hate, because human beings hate each other. You may not hate your neighbor, but you hate anybody who interferes with your particular ideas, or you tolerate them, which is the same form. So, what is the cause of this conflict? First of all, look at the ideologies man has created. The Russian ideology, Marx, Lenin ideologies, Mao Zedong ideologies, the Christian ideologies, the Hindu, the Buddhist, the Tibetan, the American, democratic, is one of the causes of this conflict, ideologies. You understand? Please ask yourself this question. You are Christian, which is an ideology, with your form of worship, mass, and all the tradition that goes with it, the peculiar dresses and so on. And I, as a Hindu, if I'm not, I, as a Hindu, if I am one, have my own peculiar ideologies, my own beliefs, my own faith, my own superstitions. So we are in conflict with each other. We tolerate each other. You understand? But yet there is the strain between us. You believe in one thing and I believe in another. There is the whole totalitarian ideologies and the democratic ideologies. These ideologies are at war, right? So we are asking, is one of the roots of conflict any form of ideology, any form of intellectual conclusions based on study, based on inquiry, come to a conclusion, and you come to a different conclusion, studying the same thing, and so we are at each other, right? So we are finding out whether our ideologies are one of the causes of this conflict in the world, and also in ourselves, which is I conclude something from my experience. I've had an experience of a peculiar kind, I hold on to it. And you have another. So there is a difference, there's conflict. Can one then, if ideologies are one of the root causes of conflict, can one live without ideologies? Once I work it out, think it together. Do it, please, as we are sitting here, inquiring, do it. See whether one can be free. If you think ideologies are one of the roots, causes of wars, disturbance, conflict, whether those ideologies are necessary at all. Ideologies are the projection of thought. That thought may have inquired, studied, accumulated a great deal of historical knowledge and come to a conclusion and holds to that conclusion. Another does the same thing. So there are two different camps dividing each other, arming each other, killing each other. Right? And we are doing the same thing in our private life, in our relationship with each other. Or two. So, can one be free of all ideologies? We see the cause of it. The cause is we think that with ideologies, with ideas, with ideals, we'll be secure, we'll be safe. And we discover that ideologies in themselves, created by man, will inevitably bring about conflict. Right? There is the cause, which is the cause. The cause is isolation. Isolation may be 200 million people on one side and 10 million people on the other. Or 2 people on one side and 10 on the other. So, having discovered the cause, which is the desire to live according to a pattern, traditional pattern or ideological pattern or a noble pattern, such ideologies will inevitably bring about isolation. And that may be one of the major causes of conflict. Now, when one has observed this fact and the causation of it, to be free of the cause, I should be free of the desire, of the urge, that in ideas, in conclusions, in concepts, ideals, there is safety. Come on, sir. Either it is a fact or it's not. It's a wrong conclusion. Conclusion, you understand again? Which means separate. I don't know if you see that. Moment we come to a conclusion, it breeds isolation. I believe in Christ and you don't. I believe in the Buddhist way of life and you don't. So there is this constant struggle, which means the brain has accepted a pattern of living according to some ideal, a concept, a symbol. And there is the illusion in that there is safety. So I cling to it. But when you point out to me the nature of this movement, either I reject it entirely, which is natural, or if I'm at all sensitive, at all aware of the world as it is now, then I begin to inquire. Then I begin to see that the facts are much more real than the conclusions about the facts. Right? So, can one be free of the cause of this ideological concept of life?
The second extract is from the second talk in Saanen 1982 and is titled, Is There Security in Isolation?
This condition in which we live has been brought about by various causes. The main cause is the desire to be secure. Secure outwardly and secure very, very deeply inwardly. To have no doubt, no uncertainty, to completely secure. That's how our mind works. Because inwardly there is uncertainty. Please follow this. Insecurity, because I can't depend on anybody. I've discovered that. Even in my most intimate relationship, I can't depend. And my desire from childhood is my condition which says, be secure for God's sake. Either in ideas, in knowledge, in property, or no property, which is another form of security. Go off into the mountains or into the monastery. That's another form of security. Be attached to Jesus or Krishna or somebody. So, we are inwardly insecure. The cause of it we are going to. The cause of insecurity and the demand to be secure. You understand? That's we all want security. Popularity. No. Now, why is it that we are insecure? Begin inwardly first, please. You understand? The outward things are control shaped by inward action. How our psychological demands control the outward circumstances. Right? We have created this society in which we live. We are responsible for it. Not the present generation, 1,000 generations of human beings have produced this. Of those generations, I'm a part of it. So we have produced this. And we say we must be secure. Why? Because inwardly we are sick, uncertain, confused. Right? If I'm very clear, why should I be sick? Demand security. So we're going to find out the cause of this urge, this longing for security. What's the cause of it? I feel secure in putting on a certain robe. I belong to a certain group. I feel safe. I feel safe when I'm British or Swiss. Inwardly too, when I say I'm a great man, or I've got a job which satisfies, and so on, so on, so on. So, what is the cause of this uncertainty? This is deep sense of insecurity. You all want security, right? So what is the cause of it? Answer. What is the cause of my insecurity? My feeling of loneliness, of my feeling totally dissatisfied with everything, discontent like a flame that's burning in me about the things that man has done which I don't want to do, but I don't know how to not to do. You understand? I'm burning. I'm anxious, depressed. I want to change the world, but I don't know how. I want to stop wars, and the politicians won't listen. Speaker has tried it. So, why is the brain, which can only function in complete security, fully, knowing it can only function that way, yet it is constantly living in uncertainty, insecurity? What's the cause of it? Don't look at me, please look at yourselves and find out. What do we mean by security? Secure from what? Secure from danger, right? Secure from any form of interference, right? Secure to pursue my own way. to be safe in my desire for fulfillment. Inwardly. Outwardly, I need to be secure, otherwise you and I wouldn't be here. You must have food, clothes, and shelter. No, natural. But that which is natural is being denied by the division of nationalities. Any intelligent man sees this, that there can be only security for mankind if there is a global relationship and interrelationship economically, socially, a global relationship, not an isolated security. So, we are seeking, please follow this, we are seeking security for ourselves. Which is, ourselves is the rest of mankind. Right? Because my consciousness is like yours. You suffer, I suffer. We go through terrible times, so do I. All human beings psychologically are on the same ground. It's this terrible illusion that we are all separate entities. So, is there security in isolation? I'm not being careful. Why? Who has brought about this isolation? Having brought about this isolation, it protects itself, and that protection is called security. And we see more and more observable this tribal seclusion, isolation is destroying the world. Right? America against Russia, Russia against Afghanistan, all these horrors that are going on. You have your guru and I have my guru. I haven't got one, but you have your guru. Your priest, your authority. So, if one realizes, sees the truth, please just listen to this for a few, give your attention to this. If you really see in your investigation that in isolation there is no security, now, thought has brought about this isolation, of course. Now, how do you see the truth of the fact that isolation is most destructive? Who sees it? Does thought see it? You understand my question? You've heard this statement that any form of isolation, any form, is destructive, will inevitably bring about total insecurity. You hear that statement, which is first you hear through the sensory ear, then you hear those words which have significance inwardly, right? And you say, yes, I hear it, I see that. Now what do you mean by seeing that? Seeing the statement, by saying I understand it. I understand what it means. Right? Do you understand the idea, the words, or the actual fact? Not see the fact. Which is it? Please look at it. The word, which has spoken in English, we speak in English, therefore the understanding of the word, the conclusion of the whole statement. Are you observing the abstraction of that fact as an idea, or without abstraction, observing the fact? I observe the fact that I have pain, physical pain. There's no abstraction about it. I don't say I'm perfectly well when there is agony. When there is real pain, there is no abstraction. But our brain is traditionally conditioned to make abstractions. That is, I hear this statement, I make an abstract of it. That is the idea of it, the concept of it, the conclusion by Joe, this is so. And I hold on to that conclusion, which is totally different from the fact. Now what is it that you're doing? What is it that we are together doing? Observing the fact only, without abstraction, without the idea. When you so observe, that is, observing without the desire to transcend it. The desire, please follow the fact that as long as I have an image about myself, it's going to be hurt. I am that image. Right? I am that image. But my condition of my brain says I am different from the image. So I see the fact that there is this division. Right? I say, why is there this division? There is this division because thought has separated the fact from me. The me is the fact. The me is the enemy. Right? The me with the image gets hurt. So security, as long as I live in isolation, there must be uncertainty. From that uncertainty comes the desire to be secure. The cause is thought has made me insecure. Thought has not made me. Thought has brought about this sense of division. I'm British or French, I'm my guru is different than yours, my God is different, I'll be saved only through that way, and so on, so on, so on. It's all the product of thought. And thought has brought about this isolation. And where there is isolation, there is total insecurity. And being insecure, the urge to be secure. Now, to see this whole thing, to observe the whole thing, as you would observe a beautiful mountain without any reaction, just watch it. when you so observe, the very cause disappears. Doesn't it? Because it is so. It is so, in fact, that thought has brought this isolation. Having brought it about, there is confusion, conflict, isolation. And therefore in that isolation there can be no security. F5, follow? If one remains with that fact completely, then the causation doesn't create an effect. Got it? We are wanting to change the effect, but not see the cause and let the cause disappear. From this one begins to inquire, what is intelligence? Because this is intelligence, you understand? To see the false and discard the false is intelligence. Right? Is that clear? I see, and there is perception that nationalism is destructive. To perceive that is intelligence. I perceive this whole religious structure which man has built with all their rituals, dresses, thought has built it. And to see the fact that it's not religion is intelligence. To see the fact that thought has created isolation outwardly and also inwardly. And the cause of this is thought which is fragmented in itself. And to see that is obviously intelligence. Now proceed that way, going more and more deeply, you will see that we live in a world that is so utterly impractical, utterly unintelligent. To see that, not just verbally say it's unintelligent. So to discover, not to be told what is false, what is illusory, to see it, not to act upon it, just to see it. That very perception of the false denies the false. I don't have to fight against it. You understand? So I see, step by step, the way of intelligence is acting. It's not my intelligence, it's not yours, it's intelligence.
The third extract is from Krishnamurti's fourth talk in Saanen, 1982, and is titled The Ending of Isolation.
I am lonely, which is a terrible fear and anxiety and ache, and the effect of that is isolation, more and more isolation. The cause of loneliness, if one can discover it, that the very ending of the cause is the ending of loneliness, right? Because I've discovered the cause. I've discovered that I have tuberculosis and it can be cured. They have modern medicines that can cure it. So one must discover the cause of this sense of separateness, which brings about such deep isolation, which is called loneliness. Right? Please go into this. What is it to be lonely? In that feeling of loneliness, which is deep isolation from all outward and inward relationship, what is the cause of that? This sense of being utterly without any relationship to anything. You all know this, perhaps. You may be married, you may have children, you may have lots of friends, position and all the rest of it. But there is this deep element, seed in man, that is so desperately alone. Please, what is the cause of it? The explanation by the speaker is not the fact. Explanations are never the fact. Descriptions are never the real. The word is not the thing. So please do not be carried away by the word, by the description, or by the explanation. It's like looking at the movement of a river in a picture, in a painting, which is entirely different from the actual beauty of a river that is in full flow. So we are asking the cause of it. How does one look at this question? How does one inquire into this question? Do you exercise thought to inquire? Please understand. Is thought the instrument of inquiry into such a problem? Thought being, as we went into it the other day, is limited because it's outcome of knowledge, which is limited. And knowledge can never be complete about anything. So thought is always limited. Now, do we inquire into this question by the exercise of thought? If you exercise thought, obviously, thought being limited in itself, fragmented in itself, can only discover the fragmentary causes, not the actual cause. You follow? Right? So, if one does not exercise thought, then what is there another instrument? We are used to this one single instrument. That's our condition. That's our education. And that's the only instrument we have. And we discover that instrument cannot delve into something much more profound. Right? Be sure, be absolutely clear on this point. Man, through fear, uncertainty, confusion, isolation, thought has created an idea called God, invented it. God certainly has not created us. If He has, we would be extraordinary human beings. We are not. The cause of this invention is one's fear, one's hope. That's the cause of this effect. So if one is inquiring into something that demands not the instrument of thought, then what is the instrument? You understand my question is clear, is it not? You are putting this question, not the speaker only. Therefore, it's your question, and you have to answer it. Thought is not the instrument. Then, we're asking, is the other instrument, if it exists, is it the invention of thought, which may be unconscious? You follow? I know thought cannot examine the whole universe, the extraordinary order of the universe. And thought cannot examine it, because thought itself limited. So, when I say thought is limited and cannot possibly examine that which is limitless, then I'm asking, is there a way of observation which is not the instrument of thought? Can I observe this problem of deep loneliness, this sense of total isolation, with all its consequences? Where there is isolation, there must be conflict. Where there is isolation, there must be various forms of antagonism, hatred, inevitably leading to war. So what is the instrument which is not thought, which is not unconsciously invented by thought, and say, yes, that is it? So one must be very clear that it is not the activity of remembrance, right? Which is thought. Are we meeting each other? So I have to go into the question of observation. That may be the instrument. We are not saying that is the instrument. But then it becomes dogmatic and perhaps you'll accept it, then it has no meaning. But to inquire, which is only possible when when one sees for oneself, thought is limited, utterly. And that thought is not your thought or my thought. Under all circumstances, always is limited. Then only you can put the other question. Is there another instrument which is not put together by thought? You understand? Only when you have seen the reality, the truth, that thought is limited, then you can go to something else. But if you are confused, then you will be playing a game. Is it clear? If we are clear on this point, then what is observation? Is there an observation without the word? Without association, which is remembrance, which is the chain of incidents, remembrances and activity, chain of it. Is there an observation without the past? Is that possible? You understand? Is it possible to observe the whole world as it is? Not from any bias, not from the point of view of an American, British, Russian, an idealist, a terrorist, which are all a bias, whether it's historical bias or bias brought about through reason, it's still a bias. Can one observe this world, this society around us? And therefore, myself, which is my loneliness, you understand? Is there an observation without the past? The past being the word. The past being the accumulated memory of experience, which is knowledge. Is that possible? To look as though you are looking at the world around us, the society, as for the first time afresh. Surely it is possible, isn't it? To look at the speaker, I'm taking that as an example, without all the reputation, all that nonsense. To look not at the figure, not at the form, but what he's saying. Which means you have to listen. To listen not only with the sensual ear, but the inward ear. To see whether it's false or true. So this listening requires attention. Not translate what you hear to please yourself or to accommodate it to the past memories, but to listen So, without any single movement of thought, to listen. When you listen to sound, like music, which is a sound, can you listen to that sound without naming who wrote it, who composed it? Just to listen. There's great beauty in that listening. Without any form of association. That means you are listening to it for the first time. Or when you go to Greece and see the Parthenon for the first time, it has an extraordinary significance. You want to kneel to it. The beauty, the color against the sky, the whole immense effort of the Grecian civilization. So in the same way, can we look at this problem without the word, without the association, without any form of a relationship? Can I look at this myself, which is lonely? Not there is loneliness, and I feel it, or loneliness is me. I have brought about this loneliness by self-centered activity, by pursuing my own desires and ambitions, greed, and all the rest of it. So the outward activity of isolation and the inward activity of separateness has brought about this. Right? That is the cause. Can I observe the cause? Is there is there an observation of the cause? Without wanting to transform it, change it. You understand? Just to observe it. As you would observe the flow of that river. You cannot change the depth of that water, the purity of that water, the swiftness of that water. So can you observe the cause? The cause being the whole way of our life. If you can so observe it, that very observation, which is the ending of the cause, and therefore the effect, which is loneliness, is gone. And this is not just words. You have to work at it, look at it.
The final extract this week is from the 10th talk in Saanen, 1964, and is titled The Difference Between Isolation and Aloneness.
It seems to me that it is very important to understand the difference between isolation and aloneness. Most of our daily activity is centered around ourselves, our particular point of view, our particular experiences, our particular idiosyncrasies, family, job, what we hope, what we wish to fulfill, fears, agonies, despairs, all self-centered. And therefore, all activity brings about an self-isolation. This we can see in our daily life, that we are never deeply related to anything, neither to our husbands, children, wives. We have our own secret, hidden pursuits. And our desires, our ambitions, our activity brings about this isolation. And this isolation is also the result of our escape from our daily boredom, daily frustrations, our despairs, and all the trivialities and the agonies of daily life. That again breeds this isolation. This isolation also comes about, or rather, it can be expressed when we are aware of this extraordinary sense of loneliness. When we are not related to anything. When everything is in the distant, there is no communion, there is no relationship, there is nothing. And one feels this very deeply, this loneliness. And again there is an escape from that loneliness, which again breeds this process of isolation. I think this, most of us, we know, if we are at all conscious or aware of the whole process of our being, we are aware of this. From this loneliness, from this isolating process, we try to identify with something greater, something beyond the measure of the mind, either with the state or with an ideal or with a concept of what God is. This identification with something greater, immortal, outside the field of our own thought, is what is generally called religion, which demands belief, dogma, ritual, separative pursuits of each group believing in certain aspects, and therefore again bringing about isolation. Again one sees this as the earth is divided into various nationalities, various countries. And though we are human beings, we have built walls around ourselves through nationalism, sovereign governments, economic barriers, tariffs. And again that breeds this isolation, this loneliness. Such a mind that is caught in this loneliness and this isolation can never possibly understand what is religion. It can believe, it can try to identify, It can have certain concepts, formulas. But religion, it seems to me, has nothing whatsoever to do with belief. With any organized religion, with any priest, with any church, or with any book, that state of religious mind can only be fully understood when we begin to understand what is beauty. The understanding of what is beauty must be approached through the awareness of what is aloneness. What is totally, completely alone, that state alone can know what is beauty, and not another state. Aloneness is not obviously isolation. Aloneness is not uniqueness. Uniqueness is an exception. And to be completely alone demands extraordinary sensitivity, intelligence, and understanding. To be alone, as I said, is not to be unique. To be alone implies that the mind is free of every kind of influence, therefore uncontaminated. A mind that is completely alone, and it must be alone, to understand what is religion, to find out for itself if there is something immortal, beyond time,